Welcome to the Brew Crew Review Podcast, the show by fans for fans of your Milwaukee Brewers.
All right, Brewer fans, welcome to the Brew Crew Review Podcast. Joining me today is our illustrious hosts, Scott Bartella and Vince Travato. How are you doing?
Hey, Craig. Hey, Scotty. Hey, Chad.
Doing all right.
Yep. So, all right, here we go. We've got about 21 games left in the Brewers season, and the Brewers are only 2 games out of a wild card spot, which is pretty awesome. Now, we're not going to talk about how many games back we are in the division, because that's not what we're talking about. But we've got 21 games left, and I really feel that if the Brewers get hot here down the stretch, we can pull this off. With 21 games left, what record, how many of those 21 games do you feel the Brewers would need to win in order to secure at least the final wild card going into the, make the playoffs for would it be the 5th consecutive season or 4th? I forget now.
It would be the 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Yeah, five seasons.
5th consecutive. How many of those 21 games do you feel that we win?
It's hard to say right now because it seems like everybody's playing pretty poorly, to be honest. I think maybe 15 would be a good number to shoot for.
So you're thinking 15-6? Okay, Scott, what are your thoughts?
I was going to say 14 or 15. So, yeah. 2 out of 3 the rest of the way, at least.
Yeah. I mean, we can't count on the Padres and the Phillies, playing as badly as I guess all 3 teams have been playing over the last 3 weeks. I'd say that's a pretty good range.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm in the same range. I think 13 or 14 of the games. So we'd have to go, probably 13-8, 14-7, which would be a tough task. But I think the Brewers could do it, mostly because 15 of the 21 games are at home, which is a pretty awesome stretch. Unfortunately, we've got 4 games against the Cardinals, 3 against the Yankees, and 3 against the Mets, which are all quality opponents. And we have 4 at Cincinnati at the Reds, which are a pesky opponent, and also 4 at home again. We're going to wrap up the season with the last 7 games all at home, 4 against the Marlins, 3 against the Diamondbacks. Those also concern me. So, I mean, we really have to get hot here. And hope that one of the teams are trying to catch go, near 500. If they go like 10-10 or 10-11 or whatever themselves, I think we can catch them and surpass them. But I mean, the fact that we're within breathing distance, I think, we've got to hopefully pull it all together here. I will say that Corbin Burns' last start was really encouraging, and like the Cy Young caliber Corbin Burns seemed to be back. Brandon Woodruff has also been pitching really well as also, unfortunately, Eric Lauer went on the IL, and Freddie Peralta also went on the IL. And our other starting pitching depth beyond that leaves much to be desired. In fact, we're taping this on Tuesday the 13th of September, and I know that the Brewers plan on starting Matt Bush tonight to lead off a bullpen game against the Cardinals. So, I mean, if we can get lucky and take this one against the Cardinals, maybe we can get off on the right foot to try to get these 13 or 14 wins to finish up the season. But I think the biggest task is we're going to need someone else that's filling in the rotation, whether it be Adrian Hauser, Jason Alexander, or someone else to really step up and give us some quality starts here down the stretch. I don't know who that can be. I guess I'm going to point to Adrian Hauser as a possibility, given his track record and his abilities, but that's my main concern is still, I guess, who's going to fill in for our injured guys. I will say that I'm not really expecting Freddie Peralta to necessarily make another meaningful start for us in the regular season. Could happen, but I'm not going to hold my breath due to the nature of his shoulder injury. Eric Lauer, I believe, should be coming back as soon as he's eligible to come off the IL, but we're still going to have to get by with him for about the next 10 days. So it's going to be tough sledding. I think that those games where our dominant pitchers aren't starting are going to be the key to whether or not we can pull this off.
Yeah, I mean, you're a bit more optimistic than I am at this point, Craig. If I'm being honest, there's some things that have happened. Obviously, the trade deadline being one of them. It just seems like there's a lot going on inside that clubhouse right now, and we haven't really used our press pass as much this year, but it seems like there's something going on in that clubhouse. It just doesn't give me a ton of faith or confidence right now. I hope I'm wrong. And it's not always about just on-field stuff. I mean, we've all seen Josh Hader's numbers in San Diego. He certainly struggled. I don't think that, if he was with Milwaukee, maybe we probably would have had the same record since that trade was made. But it just seems like there's some sort of lack of confidence maybe in the front office. We saw some of the comments from Lorenzo Cain since our last podcast. We saw another story that just broke today from another one of our colleagues about Corbin Burns coming out as being a bit unhappy because the Brewers never have talked to him about a contract extension. The topic never even came up. So I'm not going to say this front office doesn't know what they're doing because, as you mentioned, we have made the playoffs 4 times in the last 4 seasons. But it just seems like there's some element of unhappiness that's floating around that team and inside the clubhouse right now. I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, it's pretty tough. I think the way that you would want to spin it if you're the front office is the reason that we didn't go out and get more help for you guys is because we believe in you. However, it's also very possible that the people that are on the team are like, hey, well, I mean, like you could look at a guy like, let's say like a Rowdy Tellez. Like obviously, we picked him up and he's done all right for us, but at the same time, it was an area where we could have potentially maybe improved the first base position. But in order to do that, that means maybe, you might have to trade Rowdy Tellez in order to upgrade that position. And so, on one hand, you're like, hey, we brought this guy in here. We think he's going to produce. And so we don't think that that's the position that we need to upgrade. So I think that part of that, along with, the tough, like the really big asking prices that some of the teams were looking for like quality bats, obviously had some issues there, but at the same time, I don't know. I just think that's the way that players are going to look at it, like they're just looking at it like, hey, you didn't do enough for us, but
yeah,
it's what it is at this point. Get to work.
Yeah, and I'm not even saying that they're totally right or that there should have necessarily been a specific on-field addition that was made. But if nothing else, it shows that there's this lack of communication going on between the front office and the clubhouse. And I think that that's probably a very important factor in 2022. It's something that clearly has had an effect. I mean, unless you looked at that team that was in first place by quite a few games in May and June and said, okay, they are not a playoff contending team, they're not that good, then I don't know what else can explain why they haven't been the same team since the trade deadline. Again, I don't want to spend this entire show just rehashing that. We have talked about it quite a bit, but at the same time, I do think that it's kind of the elephant in the room that, as we gear up for what we hope is a playoff run, I'm not sure that this team really has what it takes necessarily to make that run. I hope that doesn't come across as too pessimistic. It just seems like kind of a weird off year in the clubhouse, and I don't know how else to phrase it.
Well, I think you guys make some fair points. The thing that makes baseball unique from other sports is just an example. Let's look at just basketball. I mean, the successful teams of basketball really need 2 to 3 really superstar quality players, and if you have that, the rest of the team chemistry and other stuff that doesn't maybe matter as much. Looking at football, I mean, if you have a good quarterback, you're going to be really successful. If you don't have a good quarterback, it doesn't matter how great the rest of the team is. Without a good quarterback, your chance of success and being a playoff team is not as good. Baseball is more of unique where like you could have a superstar player. Let's look at the Angels, like Mike Trout, and they have Shohei Ohtani, probably 2 of the best players, 2 of the top 5 players in the league. That's almost unanimous, but they can't sniff the playoffs because the rest of their front office does not know how to build the pieces to get them into the playoffs. I mean, it's a team sport more than anything. And there's a lot of factors going in when building a team and a roster. And I think our front office has been good at that. But using the Lorenzo Cain situation, I'll call it, as an example, when you're weighing someone like Cain's value to the team, not only do you have to weigh his current statistical performance, but I think you have to weigh in his veteran leadership, his defense, and other factors. I just don't know. Go ahead, Vince.
Well, I was just going to add to that his on-field intelligence too. I mean, he's an incredibly smart player as a veteran. He's got lots of experience. He's a world champion. All those different things that come into it. So I wasn't trying to interrupt your point. I was kind of just adding to it.
Yeah, but also just not just leadership, but just how his presence affects the overall team chemistry. And I think that I don't really know all the reasoning behind the Cain situation, but when building a team, having those veterans, I think, is very important in baseball more than other sports, even especially when we have a young team. The thing with the whole analytics front office GMs and whatnot that have, kind of overtaken baseball in the last 10 or so years, and David Stearns and Matt Arnold definitely fit into that. There's been some great success ever since, Moneyball, basically, in that department. However, I don't want to accuse the current front office of running the team more like a fantasy league team, but it sure seems that they're making decisions that aren't based off of things that will affect the clubhouse. Because obviously, if you're running a fantasy team, you don't have to worry about the clubhouse. You have to just worry about straight analytics, stats, whatever, get you up. I think there's a lot more to factor in. And in order to get a real pulse on that, I think you really need to be well connected with your manager and the clubhouse. And I'm not going to really necessarily, without knowing information, accuse this front office of doing that. But some of the decisions that they've made this season and now, I think show that could be the case. I guess it's just pure speculation on my part, but I really just feel that going into this season, our front office hasn't been accused of making too many missteps, but it sure seems like they're coming at us from all directions this season, so to speak.
Well, that's the rub all the time too, isn't it? I mean, the analytics debate or revolution, I guess it's been interesting to watch unfold, and certainly it has a lot of value, and you can analyze guys and their tools a little bit differently, but you still are finding that I think that there's qualities to guys you can't measure yet through, analytical or statistical tools. So it doesn't paint a complete picture. It paints part of a picture. And I think that when you're a guy who is a heavy analysis, sabermetrics based general manager, that can be a good thing, but you also have to realize that there is a bigger picture out there too that you also have to look at equally. And I think that that's maybe what is being missed. And I think that the other factor with some of this stuff too, and I think that this will be real interesting to watch unfold, is that most teams then have now adjusted to sort of the Moneyball sabermetrics philosophy and have brought in generally guys like Stearns. They're Ivy League guys who didn't necessarily play baseball or have a degree in something that like a sports degree, a sports management degree, but they're guys who are now all thinking alike. And I'm wondering if there's going to have to be some sort of counter antidote to that, as though the next Moneyball is going to be guys who are not thinking like that, finding a way to measure some of the other aspects that maybe aren't currently being measured. Maybe will be the next stage of Moneyball, so to speak, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it kind of does. I mean, I guess I always just think of, like, first of all, like you were saying, it's very difficult to, try to gauge morale and how that's going to affect the clubhouse. The other thing is, when you mentioned Lorenzo Cain earlier, I almost thought, yes, I think it was difficult to let King go the way that it was, the breakup happened the way it did. Disappointing. But I think as far as a clubhouse presence, I think McCutchen probably fills in that role just as easily. But I don't know. I guess it's just really difficult when you don't have any way to gauge that. And like, you almost look at analytics now and just say, okay, well, what's the best way to score? Get this launch angle and you'll hit a home run. Just do that. But when that doesn't work, you need to find another way. Like, I think the most important part of an offense is to be able to score in multiple different ways, and the Brewers typically don't really have ways to do that. So that's why I like a little bit of speed and just contact hitters that can maybe scrape a run across against like an ace that you face in the playoffs who frankly doesn't give up home runs very often. So it's hard to say what's going on. But is part of this, I guess I should ask, at this point, he's kind of been untouchable for a long time, but do you think that Craig Counsell has lost a little bit of this clubhouse? I mean, obviously they're not producing, in Craig timber the way that we hoped that they would. And I think everybody has to take a little bit of responsibility, and I think he's, going to have to take some responsibility as well there. But yeah, it's rough.
That's tough to say. I mean, I still have a high opinion of Craig Counsell. I think that he's still, handling players and management of the team just fine. As far as just to answer the Craig Timber thing, I think one of the things that Counsell has done best in the Septembers that he's been the manager has been to utilize the depth that is provided to him as a manager by the addition of the September expanded rosters, and that was not available this year. That's no, with the new collective bargaining agreement, the number of roster spots does not increase anywhere near as like it used to. So I think that's where the depth that was built by the organization, the front office, Craig really used that to his advantage in all the years that he's been manager. And fortunately, he doesn't have those options this year. So you do see him tinkering a little bit with the lineup. And one of those moves that he's made in the month of September that kind of surprised me is he basically has taken away everyday at bats from Louis Urias and given most of those to Jace Peterson, who's returned from injury. And again, Jace Peterson is like a veteran who's obviously his value is in his quality at bats and his versatility. But when you have a young player like Louis Urias, who's still 25 years old and about to hit his prime, I'm not a huge fan of taking away September at bats from that player unless they're really tanking. And again, he's having a worse season statistically than he has last year, but not by much. And I really feel that he shouldn't be on a short side of platoon at third base like he is right now as we finish up the season. And so that's one move I disagree with. But overall, I think Counsell does a good job, and he's trying to win games just like any manager is. And I don't think that, I think that he is liked by the players and they do like playing for him. And obviously there are some things that the team has done I disagree with, including the dugout bell and whatnot. And again, as a manager, I would not allow that, but and so there's a fine line, and then there was someone, looking back at former Brewer managers, I know Ken Maka was like the opposite of a Brewer, of a player manager, I should say, and players not like him at all. He's very old school. And so I think there's a happy medium between that. And I'm not saying Craig Counsell's necessarily a pushover by any means, but I think there needs to be a nice balance, and most managers hit that. And but with that being said, I don't have too much to criticize as far as Counsell's job that he's done as a manager of the Milwaukee Brewers this year or going forward. My concerns are little there.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you on that, Craig. And I don't think that Craig is the problem with this. I think that Craig, if he's lost the clubhouse at all, first of all, I don't think he has. But I do think that if there's any lack of respect inside the clubhouse, I don't think it's with the manager. I think it's more with the front office. So he's pretty much, I think, following the same tactics that led him to the postseason for a number of years. And I suppose you could say that the front office has kind of changed some of their tactics, perhaps a bit. I don't think it's been Craig that has. So I think that he's safe. I think the Brewers are pretty lucky to have him as the manager, and I think that he'll probably be around still for a number of years, if I had to guess. But
I would hope so.
Yeah, I would think so as well. Scott, are you hearing anything from our anonymous source, Tom Carter, from your being in the clubhouse at all with our press passes?
No, just that morale was a little bit low, like obviously after the trade deadline, and but I think Tom thought it was only going to last a couple days and that everybody was going to, push on and realize that they have a goal in mind. But I think it took a little longer, and may have cost us a potential playoff spot. By the way, CBS says we have a 27% shot of making the playoffs right now. So maybe a little higher than we thought even, but yeah, not kind of interesting. See how
we're gonna maybe title this podcast "A Glimmer of Hope" because I think 27% is a little higher than a glimmer even. So, but with that being said, I think that it's going to take a really strong finish. I mean, we can't go 500-ish for the last 21 games here this season, especially with so many home games. We really have to win almost every series if we want a shot at actually securing that spot. And then once if we do get in the wild card spot, I mean, it's just like a brand new, fresh start. All you got to do is win a 3-game series against an opponent, and then go from there. And with our pitching and our bullpen, I really feel that anything could happen for us if we were to get into the postseason. And I think that's the thing that bothers all of us the most about us not being more, having the front office not try as hard to get this particular 2022 Brewer team into the playoffs by improving the roster. I think that was a little bit of a shocker, obviously, but hopefully,
we've seen what other teams can do that I think we're kind of like the Brewers in many ways, like the Braves last season or the Nationals in 2019. I think are two examples of teams that were probably not the most talented teams in baseball, but yet went on to win world championships because they got hot at the right time.
Yeah, but you got to be in it to win it. So we get the Brewers find a way to gut this out, and hopefully, and obviously, regardless of what happens, we here at the Brew Crew will be there to unpack the season for you as we head into October. Hopefully, we've got some postseason to provide for you. So, I just wanted to kind of point out real quick before we move on to more Brewer talk. Overall, obviously the new collective bargaining agreement between MLB and the Players Association this year led to the expansion of playoff teams from 10 to 12. And I'm a little bit surprised that some of the races are not closer. Most of the divisions already wrapped up, besides like the NL East with the Braves, Mets, and of course the AL Central. I think the Cleveland's got a 3-game lead on the White Sox. Minnesota's kind of faded last week, but there's not. And even the wild card spots, I think all the AL wild card spots are pretty much wrapped up. It's just the ordering that'll have to be determined. And so really the Brewers trying to catch the Padres or Phillies for that last wild card spot might kind of be the last race for a playoff spot that's available, which is kind of surprising to me with 3 weeks left in the regular season. Are either of you kind of surprised by how that's played out this year?
A little bit, yeah. I would have thought that there would have been more teams in contention, obviously, just because of the expanded playoff format. This has been kind of a weird season, I think, in many ways. A lot of teams have been kind of playing under, I think, their level of expectation going into the year. I'm thinking of teams like the White Sox and the Angels, for instance, even the Rangers to a degree. So yeah, I'm a little bit surprised.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it'd be nice if there were maybe a few more races and stuff like that. But at the same time, like you were saying, our potential playoff run or push could very well be over basically about a week from now because, Cardinals, Yankees, and Mets, that's running the gauntlet right there. So it's going to be tough. I mean, by the time we're going to have a much clearer picture on this by the time we tape next, that's for sure, because this is going to be rough. Hopefully we're still in it. Hopefully we're able to weather that and then go on a big run at the end. Because, I mean, this is a team that could still, very easily go, 8-2 their last 10 games and make a run that way. But really got to fight through this next week.
Yeah, and in some ways, even though that's a gauntlet, like you say, Scott, in some ways, the Marlins and the Diamondbacks last games of the season even scare me just as much as the two New York teams. For whatever reason, the Brewers just seem to play down to that type of competition, and I feel like we play really well against some of the better teams. But with that being said, unfortunately I noticed that Max Scherzer went on the IL, which I thought would be encouraging, but he's slated to come back like during one of the games of the Brewers series early next week. So of course that sucks, but what can you do, I guess? And yeah, we're gonna have to possibly gut out a couple of bullpen games. Obviously, we mentioned the one that's coming up here against Cardinals. But I mean, I don't know how we're going to this stretch of games with our unfortunately the Freddie Peralta injury really happened, and the Lauer one, a really inopportune time. So there's not much you can do about that, but besides just go to the next man up. And I guess if his name is Jason Alexander, that's what his name is. I mean, there's not much you can do about it. So unfortunately, I guess just pointing out, there were other guys that we really thought that were going to be helping in the depth of our rotation at this time of year. And that's Aaron Ashby, who is coming back from injury, but has been regulated to the bullpen for the remainder of this season. And then Ethan Small, who has had a pretty bad year at AAA and in his short stint at the Brewers. So those two lefties, I think the Brewers really pegged to have major contributions on the 2022 Brewers' success. And they've both gone through major growing pains and struggles this season. And I think that's really what might be one of huge factors that might torpedo our playoff chances. I mean, that's just the bottom line. Those two players, I think, not stepping up and going through struggles here at their young age as left-handers, I think it has really been a detriment to this season for sure.
Yeah, it's pretty difficult.
Go ahead, Scotty.
No, I just the only thing you can do at this point is, I mean, we have so many injuries, I guess, to the rotation that, yeah, I mean, the bullpen game is almost the only option at this point. The good news is that we still have a lot of quality bullpen arms, and so I don't know, maybe a couple bullpen game wins could, help bring this team together and kind of bring that morale up. I mean, is there anything better than winning a bullpen game? That's kind of cool. Like, everybody kind of chips in.
That's a good way to look at it, Scotty. And obviously injuries have been a problem, but the Brewers still seem to have long-term faith in these guys. I mean, Ashby getting that contract extension despite having the year that he's having, I think shows him at least that the Brewers front office has a ton of faith in him going forward. And it's probably a measure of your point too, Craig, where the Brewers are recognizing that they kind of need that left-hander in the rotation. I do think that Ashby has probably been one of the bigger disappointments for the team this year. I assume that the team expected that he would develop a little bit more, but I also think that without the injuries, that first of all, some of that development would have happened, and also the rotation itself would have been a little bit more fortified and a little bit better equipped to handle some growing pains from a guy like Ashby. But I'm still not overly worried about him at this point.
Yeah, I agree with Vince. I think Ashby is going to turn into a really quality pitcher as of starting next year and be a member of our starting rotation as a staple going forward. Ethan Small, since he has not had success at the major league level, I think is more worrisome. And again, if in the offseason or whatever, at some point he regains some of his value and is able to be a trade chip to improve other areas of our team, mainly our offense, I would not be opposed to moving him. Especially with one of our trade acquisitions, Robert Gasser came over in the Hader deal, has been pitching really well actually after being promoted to AAA, actually at AA and after being promoted to AAA. So I think he's only had one bad start in his entire time in the Brewers organization, has been pitching fairly well. I think that he's on the cusp of being major league ready by sometime next season. And I think with that being said, it kind of might make Ethan Small possibly expendable. But again, you can never have too many arms. So I don't think they're going to, be shopping him, so to speak. But I think he needs to, I don't know what the Brewers' plans are for him. Maybe they'll send him to the Arizona Fall League or something to get some more innings in. I don't know. But yeah, Ethan Small, what we thought he was, and this happens a lot with prospects. He's not showing that at the major league level as of yet, and now he's struggling in AAA. So again, he could come around. There is that old adage that left-handers develop a little bit more slowly. We've seen that before, but his season so far this year has definitely given me some concerns about what his future holds at the major league level. So a couple other exciting things to talk about. We're talking about future. The future of the Brewers. One of our minor league players who's really broke out this year is Jackson Trio, who is a 19-year-old outfielder who's been start of the year at low A and has now been promoted all the way up to AA and has had a phenomenal season. He's been hitting, I think, around 320 with great on-base skills, and he's got 20 homers, I think, this year and like 30 steals. and he's gone. His prospect status is he's gone all the way from, I think, outside the top 100 prospects in Major League Baseball all the way into the top 5 in most prospect lists. So the Brewers, it's exciting to know that they have like a top 10, top 5 prospect in all of baseball going into the offseason. And he could definitely be a future star in the making, middle order type hitter for the Milwaukee Brewers. So, I mean, that's an exciting thing to look at going forward, because that's something we didn't a year ago at this time did not realize that we had already in our organization. So kudos to him. And of course, during this offseason, we'll have some podcasts where we go over some other things, including some of the rule changes that have now been MLB has implemented that'll begin in the 2023 season. I know that none of us are super enthused about any of those rules, but we'll unpack that and talk about that in one of our off-season podcasts coming up here. But yeah, overall, I guess I should also point out that since our last podcast, Garrett Mitchell has been called up and made his major league debut for the Brewers and gotten in about 29 at-bats. Fortunately, he struck out in 15 of those, and he's currently at a 138 with 1 home run and 3 steals. But with that small sample size aside, I think he has shown that he has skills that will make him a major leaguer going forward, and hopefully, he'll get his opportunity as a Milwaukee Brewer. So going forward, but yeah, obviously his center field defense is something that is really will carry him most likely, and he does got a lot of speed and ability to hit, as he's coming out of UCLA and was a first round pick not that long ago. So again, there's still lots of promise with Garrett Mitchell, but and so congratulations to him for making his major league debut here in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and it was exciting too. I think that there was at least a little hype and a little buzz that took place when he did get called up at first. I think that the front office may have actually called him up a little bit early, and we're kind of hoping that he would be the spark or the bat that we needed. I never expected that from him, or really expected him to carry this team or anything, being a rookie and all. But it was nice to see him at least get a couple at bats. I think that this is the type of guy, though, that in other normal seasons under the previous CBA that we would have just seen as a September call up, not as your quote unquote bat that you're bringing in to save your offense in August.
And again, I don't want to speculate on actual trades that were offered, but the scuttlebutt was that the Brewers had opportunities. The Brewers front office had opportunities to improve their current offense this season by possibly getting some rentals or whatnot. And they were reluctant to trade some of their near ready MLB talent. And I'm guessing Garrett Mitchell was in that conversation. So whether or not the Brewers made the right call by not trading him in a package for someone, like a Ramon Laureano of the A's, who's got a couple of years of team control left, whether or not that was the right call, well, only time will tell. But I mean, I think that the front office does know what they're doing, and I think that they highly value Garrett Mitchell still and see him as an integral part of the future Milwaukee Brewers. So I mean, I can't fault them for that, because he does have a very high ceiling. He could emerge as a superstar at some point, and to have a player like that under team control is something that you don't want to give away too easily at a trade deadline. So you just never know. So before we wrap up this podcast, I was going to throw this out there. I know we still have not been able to go on our annual Brew Crew Review road trip or destination together. But anyway, just throwing this out there for either later this year or next year. If you could cross the next MLB ballpark off your bucket list, which one would you go for?
Oof, I've only had 4 to go, guys. I'm down to San Francisco, Oakland, Arizona, and Seattle, which I don't know if y'all have been to all of those, but I'm going to go with Oakland. I think it's kind of random. It's called the last dive bar in baseball. I know that the stadium is old and everybody says that it's awful, but to me, there's something nostalgic, and I do hear it compared every once in a while to Milwaukee County Stadium. So I'm going to go with Oakland, but I'm hopeful of actually knocking out all 4 next season. We'll see if that's possible or not. But wait, you guys don't want to meet me in Cincinnati next weekend or next week? Yeah, next weekend for the Brewers last road trip. Scott, I'm sure you're up for it. You can just drive there.
No, I'm not up for it, but I still I'd be most excited about those Montgomery and ribs that all of the people that we've interviewed on previous podcasts have raved about. I did mail order a couple of them during COVID, and they were the best ribs I've ever had. Even though they were like just packed and frozen or whatever, and they're like, yeah, cook them up. But they were still amazing.
I'll have to try those next week and take a picture for you. I'm sure it'll be the same.
Awesome.
No,
to answer your stadium question, though. To answer your stadium question, Oakland, I would like on my list, and I have a couple that are fairly close by that I really need to knock out. Arizona is definitely one of them, and I still want to go to Colorado, but those are all on my list. But I have a lot more than 4 stadiums to go.
Yeah, mine's more like a dozen plus as well, Scott. But obviously, the one that's still at the top of my bucket list is Fenway in Boston, but I don't think we'll be going there. But I really want to check out the Minute Maid down in Vince's neck of the woods, obviously. Oakland, I wouldn't mind it. It's definitely one I was. So yeah, I think that since that's all near the top of our list, maybe that should be one of our next destinations. But Scott's still living on the West Coast technically, so we should really knock out Arizona at some point.
Yeah, that'd be fine too. I know that the Brewers play out there in April of next season. I'd be up for that, or we could go to. I feel like we should, if it's going to be our road trip, see the Brewers on the road. So yeah, I would definitely be up for planning that for next April. I don't know how, Scott, you're going to do that, but yeah, I would love to do that with you guys.
Yeah, the 2023 schedule is out, so not that we're playing out this schedule, but looking forward to next year's schedule. It's got some awesome opportunities on there, and like we mentioned before, the Brewers are going to play every team in baseball. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, Craig, one of the epic ideas that we could look into. If you want to ditch your kids for a while, though,
quitting our jobs, buying an RV.
Yeah, quit your job, get it, and then do all that. But the Brewers play in Phoenix one week and then play in Seattle the week after. So I think there's a San Diego trip in between those two. So I'm just saying,
Yeah, that's cool.
If it goes highway and
Arizona and Seattle are Phoenix and Seattle are a little bit further away than that, what you might be envisioning, but they are both on the West Coast.
Yeah. I'm well aware. It's just, I know Scott likes to drive now, and we could have him be the driver and just saying we can knock that out.
That's right. Yeah, that's a good plan.
Yeah, now that I'm a professional driver, I hate driving even more, but I think when I deliver DoorDash, I should just make a T-shirt that just says "Professional driver, do not attempt."
Dad, if you drove all the way from Phoenix to Seattle, though, if you just left your dashing app on, maybe you could actually just be dashing along the way.
Yeah, just make money. That is a feature. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, maybe just dash in Utah a little bit, dash in Oregon. It'll be fine.
Maybe you.
I'm hardly even comfortable dashing within like beyond 15 miles of my house. So it's possible that I would not really care for it. But yeah, you never know.
I actually would have pegged you as more of a 5 mile type of guy, not 5 miles from home.
Well, I got to go 5 miles just to get to my hot spot. And then after that, I have like a 10-mile radius. But even that, yeah, it's probably closer to 10 miles, 10, 15, yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever our next Brew Crew Review destination get together is, I know that after the bar time and then we're back at the hotel or whatnot, we could just hire Scott to go get our food for us. So
that'll be great. Yeah,
ask him to. So he's got all this experience. That'll be perfect.
We'll tip you well, Scotty. We will tip you well.
I would probably just order DoorDash myself and try to give back to the community that's provided so much for me.
Do you get an employee credit at DoorDash, Scott? I'm sure viewers in West Dallas are wondering.
No, but sometimes if you go out and deliver for them at a certain time, they'll be like, "Hey, you know what? Take 30% off your next food order through DoorDash, but you got to pick it up yourself," or something like that. And so
I get those same notifications, Scott. I don't dash.
Oh well.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it was one of those like advertisement things where they go, "Oh, today everybody gets the employee discount," and you're like, "Oh, well, the employees are like, well, thanks a lot." Like,
well, at least the insurance is good.
All right. So hopefully bring some Brewer wins back from Cincinnati, Vince. I'm hoping to make it out to AmFam Field once or twice, or hopefully a bunch more times once we get into the playoffs this season. Yeah, so overall, Scott, hopefully, I know you've made it to a handful of Brewer games this season too, so hopefully you have the opportunity to at least hit up one more. But yeah, definitely looking forward to the home stretch here. There's nothing like a playoff stretch run, and the Brewers need to win every game, so hopefully they do that.
Yeah, let's do it 100%. We'll hopefully be wrong about a lot of these dour predictions. And I know, Craig, you're a bit more optimistic than we are, but I'm very, very much hoping to be proven wrong on some of these things, and that, I guess every team, on a more positive side, just to wrap this up, I'll just say that every team does go through bad stretches in 162 games. So maybe the Brewers' bad stretch happened to be August when everybody's watching after the trade deadline, but maybe they can tie it up and play really well the last 3 weeks or 2.5 weeks, whatever it is.
It's kind of like I told our old boss, Chad, at the ticket office when, things were looking a little grim back when we got rid of Ned Yost and hired or promoted Swaim, I guess. We've been Brewer fans all season. We've lived and died with the team, but things aren't looking great right now. But you know what? There's only a couple weeks left in the season. Like, let's ride it out. We've rooted for them all year. What's another week or two? Let's do it. It could happen.
That's a good point, Scott. I have to admit, I did take like a little bit of a cleanse after the deadline, basically, and didn't watch for maybe a week. I want to be fully upfront about that.
I think a lot of people did. I think a lot of listeners even here. And it doesn't mean that they're not fans, and I don't question their fandom or anything like that. It's difficult because, a lot of times fans care just as much, if not more, than the players and than the front office, and it's hard.
That's the thing. It's not about not loving the team. It's about it's like you got to step back sometimes because you love the team, and that's. I think I kind of had to do that, to be honest, for a week or 10 days even.
It's just like a loving marriage. Sometimes you need to take a vacation. Without
it's what good dog dads do too, Scott. We'll see you in Cincinnati.
Oh yeah.
But with that being said, it's time to light this candle, Milwaukee Brewers. No more ringing the bell.
Let's go, guys.
Candle.
Let's go, guys.
Let's sneak in the playoffs and have a good run. So, all right.
So you're saying there's a chance.
That's what we're going to title this episode. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. You're saying there's a chance. Go Brewers.
Stay classy, West Dallas, and go Brewers.
Go Brewers.
Go Brewers.
Do.